I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and bad. Out on life's road.
All right, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. In this episode today, I'm extremely excited about. For those of you who haven't joined us before, Warrior versus Zombie, we interview warriors from all walks of life, aspiring leaders, health practitioners. These days I think of those people, even people that are on their journey and could be in ministry, could be just in life. And so today we're fortunate to have Scott Schilling with us today. Scott has become a great friend. He's an author. He's actually his moniker, or he's a significance expert, and he can explain a little more what that is to him. But what that is to me is he's a servant leader. He's somebody who's devoted his life, and I can relate to this because that's probably why we've become friends. He's really committed to inspiring people, looking at today's challenges and things like that. And he just, as of today at least, I got a notice from him that That Sucks, What Now? His latest book. I think you've got about 14 of those books going or have gone, and he's got over 35 years of experience. He's been on thousands of live events and been on stage with folks like Colin Powell and Rudy Giuliani, and so awesome timing, awesome opportunity, and for those of you in the audience, I think you're going to find what Scott has to offer incredibly important. So, as I always do with the episode, I want to check in and just let Scott talk for a minute. I've done all the talking so far, and just how's it going, Scott, in this interesting time that we're all going through? And I say interesting because everything has challenge and support in our lives, and I see it as opportunity, but that's just me. So, but how are you doing?
I'm doing fabulous, but I'll get better. It's all good. It's one of those, Einstein said many years ago, in the midst of every crisis lies great opportunity. And so a lot of that really is mindset. A lot of it is how you're looking at it going forward. Obviously, we're in unprecedented times. We're having to deal with things that none of us have ever had to deal with. And at the same time, I truly believe we're going to come out of this so much better off for it in so many different ways. And I understand there are people saying, oh, well, he's already nuts. I mean, I can't believe he made a statement like that. Well, part of it is making a decision and making a choice to come out of this better than it's ever been. So it doesn't mean that everything's going to be better. It's where you put your mindset, where you put your heart, how you come out of this thing. And quite frankly, we're rocking. I'm excited to be around. Again, this isn't the way I would have designed it, but nobody asked me. So now I'm living in somebody else's design at the moment.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's really, I love what you said. That's about mindset and just kind of the way we choose to view it. I mean, the old saying, half full or half empty, is really true. But I also say, and we've talked about this, it's which door are you looking at? Are you looking at the door that closed behind you because things changed, or are you looking forward to the doors that are opening in front of you? And I always find that the people who really realize the opportunity and seize the opportunities that come during times like this, including myself, are those who look forward and accept that the way it was is never going to be the same again. No. And I think that's the most healthy thing that anybody can do right now, is really do what you're saying in your book, which I love, by the way, the title. Some people go, it's kind of takes some people back. That sucks. Is that but just accepting that what is, and now what am I going to do, is such a powerful message, especially during this time. So that's probably why this was the time for you to release the book, right?
Absolutely. The book was supposed to be out just before Christmas, and there were a number of different events that kept on delaying it, and that allowed us to actually add some content to it and a variety of different tweaks and a variety of different things. And it's interesting because for those of you who know me, you know that I don't speak like that. I don't say that sucks, what now? I don't say it publicly. We all say it privately. And it actually came from a friend after sharing with him some of the things from the book. He said, "What did you say to yourself after all that?" And without thinking, I went, "That sucks. What now?" But see, I don't see that to be a negative statement in the least. That sucks simply represents, I would have preferred it happen differently. But the what now is, okay, it's happened. No time to sit around. What are we going to do to fix it? So it's really a positive, that sucks. What now? Okay. We're going through a pandemic. That sucks. What now? What do we do about it? Right? It's not oh gosh, that sucks. See, if it says now what, you give up there are very specific reasons why the words are in the order they're in, right? If you say that sucks, now what? You're looking for somebody else to give you an answer of what to do with your life going forward. When you say that sucks, what now? Okay, let me take the bull by the horns. Let me take control of what's going on. Let me control what I can control. I said this, I actually did a radio show in the UK yesterday. And the guy says, "So what do you think of all this with the pandemic?" And I said, "You want to really hear what I think?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "I think God got upset and put us all in timeout and said, go to your room and think about it. Start treating people with dignity, honor, and respect like I taught you to. You guys got to get your head screwed on." And I truly believe that's it. I think this is a great time for us as a world to reset. Our environment is healing itself. Now, is it going to take away thousands of years of abuse? No. But is it becoming better? I mean, somebody said, "Look, there's actually a sky above Los Angeles." We never knew that, right? It was all smog previously, right? Without cars driving around, they're actually able to see the sky. And there were dolphins swimming in the channels in Venice. There's all sorts of things going on around the world right now that used to happen that haven't happened for quite some time, that are actually quite beautiful and quite refreshing. So again, how do we choose to look at it? And that's really what the book is about. Is the subtitle is Real World Solutions for Getting Through What You're Going Through. Basically, we all go through stuff in our life. It's not a matter of everything being good or everything being bad. It just is, and so at some point in time, you are going to come up against some kind of challenge or some kind of not necessarily positive thing in your life. And it's not that it's not going to happen. The question is, what are you going to do when it happens? And hopefully the book shares some of the tips, techniques, strategies, solutions that I've developed over my life to be of service to you. Experience is a great teacher. It's just a very expensive teacher. Right. No reason for you to have to go through the expense if somebody else has already lived it. And quite frankly, I wouldn't want you to get the same experience I had in a number of cases.
Well, that's an awesome place to kind of end this segment. And because really, I think the next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about your story. I know you've chronicled a lot of things in your book. I've actually started and halfway into the read already. It's a book that's pretty straightforward, pretty easy read. And so I'm excited about finishing it and going through. And I thank you for doing it, but I want to back up when we come back in the next segment.
Sure.
And you're making reference to things that you've overcome, some zombies that you've killed off in your life, and as well as some things you've powered through. And so when we come back from for the next segment in Warrior versus Zombie with Scott Schilling, we're going to hear a little bit about your story. So with that, we'll take a quick break, hear a little bit of Ricky Jean Wright, and It's Not the Getting There, and we will
it's
come back.
It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, When you get there, you'll know.
All right, this is Dave Roberts here with Scott Schilling, and we're back with Warrior versus Zombie, and we heard a amazing perspective in the first segment of the way Scott views this time in our history, and I think that in and of itself is worth the price of admission. But I've heard enough of Scott's story, and then now rereading a lot of it in the book. I know that story, at least the high points of that the audience would really love to hear, Scott. So can you share a little bit about, and I know you and I both have a long history. That means we're old, right? And so more mature. Yeah. So I know that you can't tell me your entire life story in the next 5-10 minutes, but tell me about how you got to be here. What's your story?
Well, David, I think the thing is, again, as I mentioned earlier, we're all going to go through some really great times. We're going to go through some really less than great times. And it's not the matter of whether you will or won't. It's what you do about it when they arrive. And are you celebrating the great times and really living it out fully? And are you fighting through when a challenge comes up in front of you? And so what's interesting, as we become more mature, that is code word for old, as we become more mature, what we're able to do is look back on life's lessons. And if we truly utilize them appropriately, understand that they are actually lessons and have actually served us along the way, as opposed to that immediate impact. One of the quotes that I created and is in the book and also in the material to support the book is, everything in life is perfect, ... as time passes and perspective is gained. And the reality is that, again, what things have happened in my life? Well, I completely severed my Achilles tendon. I was playing Big Ten football at the University of Iowa. We were about to play on national TV. The pressure was getting to me. I got to admit, my buddy and I went to play golf. It had rained that morning. We decided to take a cart. The grass was wet. Ended up flipping the cart, landed on top of me like a guillotine, almost cutting a big portion of my foot off, but it completely severed my Achilles tendon, broke the bone behind it. I was told I'd never walk right again. I'd never play sports again. I'd never certainly play football. And at the time I was destined for the NFL. And as it turns out, when I got to I just looked at the doctor, and I was heavily drug induced at that point, and said a few fine things. And then I said, sew me up, I'll be back. And in 75 days, I was on the field starting to rehab a completely severed Achilles tendon. And I came back and played again, won 10 racquetball championships, had 4 NFL tryouts, had all the different things I was told I couldn't do. And I'm certainly not the only person that, number one, has ever come back. And I'm not the only person that's ever been told that whatever incident has happened to them is life-changing, life-ending, life this, life that. The difference is, what do you do when somebody says that? When I saw the doctor, it's interesting. I was playing Texas Tech in the Alamo Bowl 20 years after I played. And I took my kids down to San Antonio to the game. And I saw the doctor that put me back together for the first time in 20 years. And I said, Dr. John Albright, I said, I just want to thank you for what you did. You said I'd never walk right again. I'd never play sports. I'd never do that. You did a hell of a job, because I've done all that stuff. You get the credit. And he looked at me and he said, I don't get the credit. He said, I've never seen anybody so upset at what they had done and so committed to coming back from it as you were that day. I mean, from the minute it happened. And so part of this is, again, I go on and talk about my divorce, the mother of my children. Now I've got two amazing kids. I just want to grow up and be as good as my kids. But the marriage that they came from was not good. And yet the lessons I learned from that, Peggy and I now shortly will be married 25 years.
Awesome.
So it's not that you don't go through the pain and the suffering and the crud of the first situation. It's what did you learn from it and what do you carry going forward from it? I lived through a near-death experience, and I got so upset with the doctors after about 8 days of them telling me, you're not supposed to be alive at this point. I mean, you can say that to me once, and I get the point. You don't have to repeat it for 8 straight days. And I finally got frustrated, and I said, sorry to disappoint you. I guess I'm just an overachiever. I lived. But it's an attitude, right? And again, it's not, people say, where does this come from? I played 5 sports growing up. I had some of the most amazing coaches on the planet. One who recently passed, Coach Hayden Fry, amazing mentors that cared so much for their players to chew them a butt when they needed a butt chewed and to do the different stuff that it took to instill the fight forward, right? So how does that carry over? I actually think it's one of our growing problems today, giving people medals for participating. There are winners and there are losers in athletics. There are winners and losers in life. There are winners and losers in business. And if we don't teach people how to take that disappointment and turn it into something positive, we create an entitled society where people just go, gimme, gimme, gimme. I know I haven't contributed. I haven't added anything of value, but I must deserve something for just taking some of your air. I learned from coaches that made us work our butts off. And if we didn't, they yelled at us. And you know what? I'm better for it. Now, again, these are some of the things in our changing times. My guess is the people who are not coming through this pandemic well right now are those who may not have been coached hard in the past, right? Have never had to face adversity and fight through it and come back from it. Or they have the lack mentality, or they fill up 15 shopping carts full of toilet paper. Or, it's like, what's that all about? Where does that even enter into the thought process that that's the appropriate response to what's going on, right? And so the point is that what I relate in the book is not only the challenges. And again, it was not meant to chronicle my life, but in order to get the results and the solutions out the other side, you've got to hear some of that stuff. But as an example, one of the things that I teach all my clients and I share quite often is the 5 questions to ask yourself in any challenging situation. What's the lesson? What's the gift? What did I do to create this? How would I modify it next time to make it better? And how is this going to serve me the rest of my life? See, then it takes any challenging situation and turns it into, quite frankly, a learning event. Let's run those 5 questions with the pandemic. What's the lesson? That even though there's a worldwide pandemic, that ultimately what seems to be happening is it's driving people closer together. What's the gift? The gift is that, quite frankly, my family and myself have not been affected, and we have quarantined and stayed out of the flow of people to do everything in our power to stay that way. What did we do to create it? Like I said, we self-quarantined. We'd stayed away from it. What would I modify to do better? I would probably be more compassionate even earlier next time. But I think we did a pretty good job of that. How is this going to serve me the rest of my life? To really understand that every time you think that nothing new or screwy can happen to you, it just goes to show it can, because none of us have ever lived through this. Okay, well, now the pandemic isn't quite as bad.
Amen.
Right? And so if we would just take the content of our lives and review it, the true theme for the book is all things work together for my good. It is not all good things work together for my good. It is all things work together for my good. Now, sometimes, again, it takes some time to pass to gain the perspective as how that can be. But I actually said it again in this interview the other day. It's real easy for us to have faith at the beginning of a project. It's real easy for us to have faith at the end of the project. It's when we're in the middle, we're in the soup, we're in the fight, that it's real easy to lose our faith and our confidence in what's going on. You just have to put one foot in front of the other sometimes. And there's going to be a lot of naysayers, and some of them are the closest people to you. And you've got to just believe in what you believe, and believe with strong faith, and move forward. I know a really long answer, but
no, that's real powerful. I mean, that's actually, in your story, connecting those dots. One of the things you got emotional when you were talking about coaches. When I heard you talking, I could see it, I can feel it in your voice, and see it in your eyes, because we're actually looking at each other, even though we're on Zoom. But I can tell you that that's one of the most powerful lessons here too, is who are you listening to? Right. Because there's plenty of people that will tell us that we won't get out, that this will never walk again, or whatever the diagnosis is, right?
Right.
But it still is up to us to say, ask those questions, be intentional, and move forward our own. That's the warrior. You just described the warrior. The zombie is trying to get back to their comfort zone, or get back to whatever it was before this occurred, and maybe don't take it as a teachable moment. So that's a very powerful way of your story. I haven't heard you tell it quite that way, and obviously we haven't been dealing in this context, which was part of the timing aspect of your book. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it was so powerful just listening to your story and then connecting those dots to where we are right now and hearing your thoughts. So,
well, I think a big part of what we all, choice is an amazing thing. Are you stuck at home right now, or are you safe at home? It's a choice. You're at home either way, right? And what are you doing with this time? I am busier than I've been forever, and working to the future. Now, there's certain things I can't do. Well, you can't do them either. We're not supposed to go outside. I mean, we're not supposed to, not that we can't go outside, but I mean, we're not supposed to frequent buildings and do things like that and whatever. Okay, well, so instead turn that into productive time on more connections with people, or doing the various things, right? The point is, we all have the choice. And when this whole thing came down, we can choose to believe our leadership that says we should stay at home and be safe, and work to try to flatten the curve. Everybody recognizes not ideal. Everybody recognizes not the first choice you would ever make. But if we want to abbreviate the duration of the problem, it's probably a prudent decision, right? And so again, we can get upset and fight and run a fear mentality, or we can run a faith mentality that says, ultimately, people are working for our good. The world is conspiring for our good. Our higher source, whatever that might be, is conspiring for our higher good. Everything is working to put us in the right place coming out of this. Are you paying attention and doing what you should or can do in a positive way? Zig used to say, thinking positive isn't everything, but it sure helps you get a lot further than when you think negative about anything, right? It's not just positive thinking, it's positive actions, it's choices, it's making appropriate decisions, it's doing all those kinds of things. It's a tough time out there. I mean, there is no way of denying that. Okay, but we also don't have to fixate on it.
Right. And actually, that's an awesome place for me to ask you the final question of this segment. And that is, we've talked a lot because obviously it's top of mind, and we've hit a little bit of the challenges and the zombies you've overcome in your own journey.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look back, and I know you don't, and I know you're a warrior, and so a warrior doesn't spend all their conscious energy focused backwards. I know that. But one question as a warrior, as you reflect, what of all the things that you've overcome to get to you where you are today, what was the one thing that you have, the hill that was the hardest for you to climb, the one thing that you overcome? Is there one thing that comes to mind? I mean, there's things you've mentioned. What is the one?
I think the one that I'm proudest of, that probably affected me most overall as a person, was my kids were 10 months old and 28 months old when my wife suggested we divorce. These are little kids. This is hard. And so, I said, can we go to counseling? And she said, no, better to be from a broken home than in a broken home. Well, when the hell did our home break? I mean, how did I miss that? Right. And so I went to counseling, and the counselor at about 6 months said, I don't know why you keep on coming. You don't need to be here. And I remember saying to her, you don't tell me how long I come here. You're going to keep taking my money until I'm ready to stop. And I ended up going for about 2 years. And the reason was I was never going to have that feeling again. And what that did is having that understanding of how to be more present with people, with a spouse, obviously, but with people in general, right? And I think that it really, I was telling my sister this not long ago as she was reading the book. And I said, I almost remember the day that I made a conscious decision. I wanted to be a nicer guy. And it's not like I wasn't a nice guy, but I wanted to be a nicer guy, right? I wanted to be nicer. And it was a decision. And so then as soon as you make, and decisions are talked about in the book, decision comes from the Latin decidere, to cut off. Mm-hmm. As soon as you make a decision, you cut off the other choices, right? And so I made the decision that I wanted to be a nicer guy. Well, what does that mean? That means you say thank you more. You say please more. You do little things more. Because it's a decision, right? And over time, now, by the way, you don't get recognized the first day that all of a sudden you did something. But over a lifetime of work, awesome people go, he's a pretty good guy. You know, the one I hear a lot, for a guy who's been on the stages the size he's been on, he's a nice guy. Because we both know some of the people who've been on those stages, right? So again, not trying to it's like, why shouldn't you be, right? It's a choice.
Yeah, people who read their own press, right, and think somehow. No, that's an awesome thing, and I get that. We've all had our relational challenges, and you have life and death. You had the opportunity to tell me about a life and death experience, or interruption to your sporting career, or the pandemic. But you said relationship, and that's actually pretty common. And for us warriors, right, we're plowing through, and sometimes we don't pay attention. And I think you even say it in your book, by the way, as I recall, we take responsibility for everything, right? It's not something that happened to us, and it's not something in our way going forward. It's just something on our way. And as I've said a couple of times through this is just part of our story. This is not the end of the story. This is just part of our story. This has just been in the way. Well, let's take a quick break. Those listening, you're Warrior versus Zombie, and we're talking to Scott Schilling, and we're going to take a quick break, hear a little more of It's Not the Getting There from Ricky Jean Wright, and
Traveling
we will be back.
Most of the time, wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you...
All right, we're back again, and I'm having such a great time here with Scott and Scott Schilling as we talk about, just shared his journey and some of the lessons he's learned along the journey and some of the challenges he's overcome. And I don't think there's any of them there that we can't relate to in some way. And I'm already just over the top excited about what I've learned so far. So we're going to go into this last segment, and here's kind of my signature segment or whatever in terms of this Warrior versus Zombie concept, because we're here. This podcast, we're here. Our story has only brought us here. And now the question is, where am I going forward? Why am I going forward? What value do I see that I can continue to provide? We're both very young guys, even though we said we were old. And so, but we're going to go through and talk about, the value we can continue to provide. And if anything were possible, what would it look like throughout our journey the rest of the way? So Scott, I'm going to turn it back over to you and answer those questions in any order you feel comfortable.
Well, I appreciate it, David. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to be on here today and hopefully share a nugget or two that somebody accepts and says, gosh, this could help me improve my life, because that's what it really all becomes. When you come through a near-death experience, it's unique, it's scary, it's all sorts of different things, but the other side of it is you come out different. You come out with an understanding that there was a possibility, a very strong possibility, you weren't going to still be here. And so I look at it as I was saved. What was I saved for? I was saved, I believe, to help share the message that we need to return respect, honor, and dignity to the planet. We need to teach people to treat people a whole lot better than they're being treated. I think that the reason that it took so long to get this book out is I actually revealed some things that have never been revealed to anybody on the planet in the book, which my editor said, has your wife read the book? And I go, no, why? And she goes, does she know about this? And I went, oh, no, she doesn't. That's a whole nother story. We don't have enough show time for that. By the way, not a good way of doing it, guys, just so you know. I had a very guy answer that was very not smart. But anyway, I digress. The point is that I was saved to share things even like that, right? Our loved ones are truly our loved ones. And even though sometimes we forget to clue them into what's going on in our heads, we really should. I think we're going to come out of this with a kinder, gentler planet. I truly believe that. I think a big part of my task in releasing this book was to really get to that point in understanding how important vulnerability is, and that we all go through stuff, and it's only the people who say they don't are the ones who aren't being authentic and not being true to what's going on. I think that it's not like we need to publicize all that stuff all the time, but we need to be able to utilize it. Again, one of the things I say in sales training when you're handling objections, whatever you do when you're handling an objection, please don't say, I understand. For a couple of reasons. Number one, it could be confrontational. Number two, you haven't walked a mile in their shoes. You probably cannot understand. Now, you can always say, I can appreciate your situation because that's within your control. You can. But quite frankly, with everything that I've been through in my life, I understand. I think that I was asked to walk a mile in a lot of shoes so that I could have the compassion, the empathy, the understanding of what some really good people are going through, that they don't feel like they've had anybody to talk to about it.
Amen.
And so if that's part of my charge, that's awesome. If sharing these stories so that it creates a conversation after the fact, I came off a stage not long ago, and a woman said to me, I just had to come up and thank you. You gave me my life back. And I said, wow, what did I do? And she said, there was something that you said in the talk that I immediately felt my life coming back. And I went, okay, you got to explain this to me. She said, well, I'm a cancer survivor. I said, well, it sounds like you already got your life back. She said, you would think so, but I went into cancer treatment with 11 other women. And when we were done, only one came out alive, me. And what that did is it put me into such survivor's guilt that I dropped into the deepest depression in my life. And it was so much worse than the cancer itself. But today you said God's plan and timing is perfect. And all things work together for my good. And I realized that I was saved so that I could, in fact, share that message with other women who were feeling that same depression. She said, I physically felt the chains released from my wrists. I just want to thank you.
Wow.
Goal, right? That's the, when you've been through this stuff, I'm just a guy. I'm a guy who's paid attention to what I've been through for the benefit of not only myself, but of others. And I believe that that's what God has in line for me. Now, whether that's on stage, on TV, on podcasts, on whatever the medium is, I think it's whatever the opportunity. You know, we've launched a new company and a new product where we're working to connect people so that they can do business with quality people the right way. But what that's doing is it's giving me access to so many more people to talk about their stories. And I have my stories as the foundational support to that. So I don't, you know, at one time, well, more than once, was a type quadruple A at one time, right? I had it all figured out. I had it all figured out so many times in my life. And the only thing I got figured out is I ain't got it figured out. And what I've come to realize, it's even when I faced a pretty specific challenge, not overly long ago, I reached out to 6 friends and I said, I need you to pray for a friend and just pray for favor. And within 2 hours, that favor was delivered for that friend. Well, the favor that was delivered was for me. And I couldn't even admit
see that one coming. Yeah, that was great.
I couldn't even admit to my friends that I needed that help. But I didn't pray for the specific humanly solution. I prayed for favor, which is by definition God's solution. Mm-hmm. And God's solution was delivered within 2 hours. And so the point is, if anything has happened in my life, is this deeper understanding of taking all this information, and some of it's embarrassing. Some of it's, you know, I'm not really ashamed of it, but I'm not jumping for joy about it either, right? But to be able to sit there and say, I've been through some things that obviously were not only meant for me, but they were meant for somebody else as well. And a friend of mine said this. He said his daddy always used to teach him, God delivers things to you so that they can go through you. Your job is to ensure they do. And so what many times is we're the recipient of the stuff, and we get caught in our own stuff going, how unfair this is, or why me, or any of that stuff, as opposed to going, you know what, I would prefer this have not happened to me, but since it has, what good can I do with it out the other end? And I think that that's the story of where I am now with that sucks, what now? Real world solutions for getting through what you're going through. Because we're all going through things, and we all want to get through them. And it's okay to have that momentary, well, that sucks, as long as you don't waller there and get stuck there, right? I mean, it is what it is. It's not the most pleasant. So it's not about being Pollyanna, and it's not whatever. It's about feeling the feeling and then moving towards a better feeling, and then also helping other people get there too.
Let me ask you this, Scott, because that's all really, it's very powerful, and you have such, in my opinion, such massive potential, and there's so many possibilities in front of you as I look at you and I know you. If anything were possible, what would be I mean, I know you're living your life for others. You're letting things, the blessings go through you, they don't stop. You're not the Dead Sea. It's not just stopping with you. You're paying it forward, as many of us are trying to do here. If anything were possible, what is your life? What does it look like? I don't mean every aspect, but just, what does it look like with this launch of this book and the things that you've done, the things that you've learned? How would you answer that question?
Well, I think to truly fulfill the plan that was set out for me long ago, that I seem to only get a day's operational plan for at a time. And even though I ask for more, it's like, yeah, no, that's not happening that way. I'll give you, and so what it really is what do I believe? I believe that I will be in front of hundreds of thousands of people in a live event, sharing this message or a portion of this message for their benefit. I believe that I'll be on significant number of TV shows, podcasts, radio shows, different things to share this story, to touch many lives. I think that I will connect some of the most amazing people to other amazing people so that we can do much better works on the planet. I think that I will spend a whole lot of time goofing around with my wife and traveling to some really beautiful places to enjoy what God's created for us to enjoy. I'll see my kids just be absolutely amazing going forward.
Amen.
I'll see a lot of really cool things. Just fulfilling this. There's just, it kind of reminds me of the old story where there's a 4-foot tall pile of manure at a birthday party, and the little kid jumps into it and starts just raking it. Everybody's going, what's he doing? He jumped into a pile of manure. And he spins around, and I said, are you crazy? With a pile like this, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. And I mean, I think that that's a big part of it. I want to do what I was placed here to do to the best of my abilities and help other people accomplish that same thing. So I'm honored to be on a show like this to help serve you fulfill one of your dreams, to have a show like this.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that I can do to help you and others, that's what I want to do. We've been blessed. We all, if you're in the United States, you are in the top 1% in the world in your lifestyle and your blessings. Even if you're not, you know what I'm saying, is we've all been so phenomenally blessed. How do we take that and truly appreciate it and then pay it forward? I remember seeing Pay It Forward, the movie, for the first time many years ago, and just going, it's brilliant. Why aren't more people doing that? And isn't it interesting, for a period of time, everybody was all excited about it and it kind of withered, So again, what am I going to do? I'm going to do great things. I'm going to have greater abundance than I've ever had, and not necessarily for me, so I can help a whole bunch of people who deserve a hand up, not a handout.
Awesome. Well, that's a very powerful place to take a break for the next segment. When we come back, and we'll hear one more time from Scott Schilling, and this has been an incredible journey, and so many things. But what I'm going to ask you when we come back, give you a chance to think about it, is if there were one. Usually, I have trouble getting just one once somebody gets started. But if there was one thing that you would learn, and then I want to make sure our audience has some understanding of how to support you, how to get in touch with you, how to get more of all the wonderful things that I'm certain, as you said, you're going to be offering going forward for the people that choose to be part of your audience. So with that, this is Warrior versus Zombie, and we'll be back with Scott Schilling in a moment.
But the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name.
All right, and we are in the land the plane, as I say it, segment of Warrior versus Zombie. So you don't want to miss this part. And we've heard an incredible journey, a story. We've heard, a lot of what Scott's doing. And I just want to, Scott, I told you the question I was going to ask you, but I want a couple of warrior nuggets for folks that are listening to this. If you say, okay, I didn't write anything down, but I'm going to go back and listen to it. But if there were two things, or one or two things, that you would suggest you would love for everybody to take away from this, whether you've said them already or not, what were those? What are those two things that we should take away?
Well, I would take away the 5 questions that I said earlier, to turn any situation or challenge into a learning event. What's the lesson? What's my gift? What did I do to create it? How would I modify it next time to make it better? How is this going to serve me the rest of my life? Those 5 questions are tools that will truly improve your life. If you do that on a daily basis, you will be amazed at what that does for you. I think the other side is understand that no matter where you are, it's absolutely perfect, and it will only get better from here. Now, does it mean that there might not be a hiccup along the way? I didn't say that, but it will only get better from here. So understand wherever you are is exactly where you're supposed to be. Be where your feet are, be present, and understand that it's now time to make a choice or make a decision to modify. It's okay to modify. It's okay to have a desire to want to improve. What would you do to improve? And then just start taking some actions toward that. It takes time. Nobody loses 100 pounds in a day. Nobody gains strength overnight. Nobody gains all those different things. It's a consistency game. Persevere, consistency, but make the decision and move forward, whatever that means for you.
Awesome.
You're infinitely talented and wonderful. Live like it. Claim it.
Perfect. What a great exclamation mark on an awesome conversation, Scott. I'm so grateful, so thankful. And I know anybody that listens to this podcast is going to be profoundly impacted by it. So again, thank you. You've fulfilled part of your vision today. If to nobody else but me, but just listening to what you had to say. Tell us how we can make sure that we support you. I want to make sure that those who want to get the inside scoop or the story, they have an opportunity to get their hands on your book, anything else, how can we do that?
So the book and the accompanying action journal are at tswnbook.com. To send me a question, it's scott@scottschilling.com. And if you want to learn about all sorts of different stuff that I do, go to scottschillingonline.com. In fact, all my TV shows are there. And I got some great guests. So again, know that I'm here to serve you. Reach out.
Awesome. And we will definitely do that. So we're coming to the end of one of the best, if not the best, episodes I've had so far. That's not a factor of any of my guests. That's a factor of me learning. Every one of these is a learning segment, and I'm very transparent with that. I'm on my own journey, and this is something that I've felt led to do, and through a number of people encouraging me, just like I know as you're speaking and other things, people have encouraged me to use one of my gifts, to be able to do this. So I know I'm not the best, but I'm learning. But Warrior versus Zombie, we're here at least once a week. We'll have guests like Scott. If you're interested in being a guest, you can reach out to me on myvisionwarrior.com, and we're launching a website which doesn't have anything on it, warriorversuszombie.com, and you can find Warrior versus Zombie on Apple Podcasts, Google, all of the major podcasting platforms. So encourage you to follow us. If you would, like us, listen to the episodes, download them, share them with your friends, and have a continued beautiful journey as we go through. And thanks again, Scott. I can't thank you enough.
My pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
For being willing to share with me and with the audience. And with that, we'll hear the rest of It's Not the Getting There. Have a good day.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know.